Hi, Eileen Wasso here, and welcome to day one of my workshop series entitled Heal Your Brain, Heal Your Body. I'm really excited to start this workshop series. It's something I've been working on for a long time, and I'm really happy to welcome you on board. I have two other goals for this workshop series. One is to share with you information about how important it is to bring your brain on board and align it with your deepest wishes for reclaiming your health and sense of beauty. The third goal is to unpack three myths that I think we all carry in our heads and which can be very disempowering. By the time you finish this workshop series, I hope that you'll have more information, tools, and strategies that you can use to align your brain with your best efforts to reclaim your health. It's been transformative for me, and I hope it will be for you. So I want to get started, and I want to share a story first of all, and that story has to do with a trip that I took to Mexico City to visit my husband's relatives. It was my husband's birthday, and they wanted to help him celebrate. The day of the party came, and I remember thinking, okay, I have my eating plan ready to go. I started the evening by just eating carrot sticks and jicama uh, uh, sticks. Jicama is sort of like a cross between a radish and an apple, but very delicious. I wasn't eating chips. I wasn't eating nuts or candies or anything. I did okay when the main meal came. I felt like I'm in control. And then out came the cakes. There were three cakes, a tres leches cake, which is a really delicious, typical kind of Latino cake, um, a carrot cake, and a spectacular chocolate cake. Well, I remember eating small portions right off the bat. I went back for seconds, and then I began nibbling around the edges of thirds. What happened to me at the end of that party is what Dr. Susan Peirce Thompson calls falling into a willpower gap. I had used my willpower the entire day, thinking I can manage this party, I can manage getting through it without getting out of control. But at the end of the day, I mean, at the end in the evening when the cakes came out, my willpower was depleted. Susan Peirce Thompson describes willpower like it's a battery that gets depleted. You run out of energy, and that when you run out of energy like that, you can't make good decisions. You can't depend on really having your best efforts, having your brain on board to make good decisions. And I don't want to beat myself up about enjoying the cake. That part, I really, I enjoyed it. I had a good time with my husband's relatives, and but the place I want to come back to is that too often we blame ourselves for being out of control with our eating, and if that's an experience, if that's something that you've experienced, then for sure, I hope this video series will help you unpack that myth and actually bust through it to see that willpower is not a kind of system that we can depend upon. What we really need is a system that we can depend upon for our lifetime in order to make these transformative changes and not just in the moment. The second myth that I want to unpack has to do with something I hear all the time. People say, oh, fat genes are running my family. I can't possibly lose weight. You know, it's just not going to work. And I think one of the reasons, again, that excites me about this workshop series is the fact that there's so much information from new research in the area of epigenetics that tells us it's not just the genes that we've inherited, but how those genes are expressed, how they get turned on in different situations. And a lot of the things that will influence that weight gain, will influence the way genes are turned on in terms of weight gain, have to do with parenting, culture, our environment, um, what kind of decisions we're making at any given time. So I really want to be able to emphasize the importance of why these myths sometimes can disempower our best efforts to take control of our health. The third myth I want to look at is the myth that says, nothing works for me. I've tried everything. And I myself know only too well how, as someone who's dieted for years and who was always very overweight, even as a child, I think that can be the worst myth to carry in your head, because it really keeps reminding you that you have no efficacy to make change, that the brain is stuck where it is, and when you carry that tape or you rewind and replay that tape in your head all the time, it can be so disempowering. So of these three myths, the myth of willpower, the myth of fat genes run in my family, and the myth of I've tried everything, nothing works for me, I hope that we can use this video series to not only unpack but dismantle those myths so that we can begin to develop a new narrative, a new story, and a new relationship to food and patterns of eating. So one of the reasons that I think that I want to share the thing that was so transformative for me has to do, again, and I'm going to reference Dr. Susan Peirce Thompson again, is that she developed a system called Bright Lines Eating. Bright lines, the concept of bright lines comes from the area of law, and it references a kind of bright line that lawyers or judges use that you don't cross over, that gives you guidelines for how you're going to make a decision. And when she applies that to regular life, you might think of a bright line as, you don't enter a busy traffic corner when the light is red. You would just never do that. And when you apply that to eating, the bright line has to do with what doesn't cross your lips, what doesn't enter your mouth. And for her, two important kinds of food that she's really strict about are flour and sugar. And I'll go into why those two more in my next video. But this notion of bright lines was so helpful for me in terms of changing my approach to eating and also reducing the inflammation that I experienced all the time. So if you're experiencing the kind of joint pain and inflammation that I had all the time, if you're really wanting to make a change in your life, to have more energy, not to feel so fatigued, or maybe you're someone who just feels like your metabolism is stuck and you want to get moving again and move your weight into a downward trajectory, well, please join me in the next part of my video series, part 2, where I want to look at a couple of different things. One, I want to look at early childhood factors that influence our eating patterns from early on. I want to look at the impact of sort of what's happening with superfoods and the toxic environment that modern food production has created. And thirdly, I want to look at strategies that really begin to help bringing the brain on board as a partner in our efforts to reclaim our health and sense of beauty, instead of as a saboteur that undermines our efforts. So join me for part 2. I look forward to having you along on this journey, and working together, we can do this. Thanks so much.